By the way, have you heard of the first-ranked scariest movie? Reportedly, in the last decade, this movie still tops as the most terrifying, capable of making its audience feel extraordinary tension. Yes, it's Sinister, 2012. The movie tells the story of a writer who tries to unravel the mystery of a family's tragic death. Now, we will prove whether the results of the scientific survey are accurate or just hype. So, instead of being curious, let's talk about the movie. As always, if you like this channel, don't forget to subscribe. The beginning of the story. The story begins with the Ellison family, a former famous writer, moving into their new home in Pennsylvania. While cleaning up, their daughter was visibly upset. Apparently, she was upset about the sudden move, leaving her friends in their old, comfortable neighborhood. To calm his daughter down, Ellison explained that the move was only temporary. If his book is successful and his name becomes famous again, they can move back to the big city.
Already?
Play nice this time.
Afternoon.
In the middle of the rush, a sheriff named French came up to Ellison. He warned Ellison not to be rash in writing a book about the tragic death of the Stevenson family. According to him, this kind of tragedy does not deserve to be commercialized. However, Ellison's curiosity got the better of him. He is determined to uncover the motive for the crime and find out the whereabouts of the Stevenson family's youngest child, Stephanie, who has disappeared without a trace. Realizing that his warnings will be in vain, Sheriff French finally just says, "The less you know, the better." However, Ellison's curiosity clearly cannot be curbed. Shortly after French left, Claire, Ellison's wife, who had overheard their conversation, finally asked what was really going on in this house. It turns out that all this time, Ellison has been deliberately keeping something from his family: the horrifying fact that the house they live in was once the site of the Stevenson family massacre. Once, while cleaning up, Ellison went up to the attic and accidentally found a mysterious box. Inside, there was an old video player and old movie tapes. What was on the tape? Over dinner, Ellison, who wants to stay focused on his work, insists that no one can enter his office, including his two children, Ashley and Trevor. He hoped the rule would help them adapt to this new environment. As the night wore on, Ellison finally began to investigate the tapes found in the attic. He played the first tape, titled "Family Hanging Out." In the video, Stephanie and her family are seen enjoying a warm time together. However, Ellison's peace of mind was shattered when the video suddenly showed a gruesome scene. Stephanie's family was brutally executed with their heads covered in burlap sacks. Even creepier, after the tragedy, the youngest Stephanie disappeared without a trace. Taking a sip of tea that nearly spilled because his hands were shaking, Ellison began to wonder, who exactly was the person behind the camera that recorded this horrific event? Not satisfied with the first footage, Ellison's curiosity led him to watch the next video titled "Barbecue Party." The video featured a warm moment of the Marcos family on vacation barbecuing meat by the lake. However, just like the Stevenson family, their happiness turns to tragedy. The footage ends with a gruesome scene in which all members of the Marcos family are found dead, burned alive in a car by a mysterious figure who then disappears without a trace. Ellison's curiosity got the better of him. He prepared to play the next tape, Pool Party. However, before he could press play, he suddenly heard a strange noise from outside his room. As they were about to check the source of the sound, they suddenly heard hysterical screams. Trevor, her son, ran out of the box like a panicked stray cat. His body was shaking violently, and his eyes were full of fear. After finally being calmed down, the next day Trevor confessed that he had no memory of what happened last night. He just fell asleep as usual, unaware of the strange events he had experienced. Ellison tried to chalk it up to simple sleepwalking. But is that really all? Meanwhile, Ellison, still filled with curiosity, returned to his office and continued playing the next video titled Pool Party. In the footage, a family is seen enjoying a relaxing time in the swimming pool behind their house. The atmosphere is full of fun, until suddenly the camera captures a mysterious figure who bears a resemblance to the Slipknot guitarist. A suspicious Ellison immediately stopped the video and replayed the scene to confirm what he had just seen. However, a strange thing happened right when the figure appeared on the screen. The movie tape suddenly caught fire by itself. Feeling increasingly intrigued, Ellison attempted to salvage the footage by converting it to digital format. Unfortunately, the part of the video that showed the mysterious figure's face could not be recovered. In the midst of his frustration, Ellison heard Claire's voice scolding Trevor. In an annoyed tone, Claire said that their son had just started school, but had already started acting up. This time, Trevor drew a creepy sketch on the blackboard, a drawing of 4 people hanging with permanent markers. Ellison, who was busy and dizzy, didn't really respond to the incident. He simply asked Claire to take care of the matter.
You're a real man of the people.
Oh, come.
As night fell, his curiosity led him back to the stack of cassettes in the study. He played a movie called Sleepy Time. The tape showed a gruesome scene: a family tied to their bed before being slaughtered by a creepy figure. With an increasingly enigmatic head, Ellison began to look for clues in the footage he watched.
New details today in the grisly.
From his investigation, he discovered that the tragedy in the Sleepy Time video happened in 1998 and affected the Miller family. Just like the previous case, the family's youngest child, a girl named Chris, has also disappeared without a trace. All the evidence begins to point to one chilling pattern: there is a mysterious figure who always seems to kidnap the youngest child of every slaughtered family. Just as he was about to find out more information, the power suddenly went out, as if PLN was not willing to compromise. In the darkness, Ellison heard a strange noise coming from the attic. Feeling uneasy, he grabbed a flashlight and went up to check. Behind a pile of old things, he found something that made his blood boil. A strange drawing depicting 5 families who had died in different ways. However, there was one detail that made him shudder. In each picture, there was one horrifying figure always standing in the background, as if witnessing every sadistic event that occurred. That figure was known as the Boogeyman.
So, you say you heard a loud thump?
He decided to call James, a police officer he knew, into his office. Ellison wanted to show him something that could possibly be new evidence related to the case he was investigating. For him, all these irregularities started happening after he tried to unravel the mystery of the Stevenson family massacre. James, who saw Ellison's investigation as just book material, was actually quite impressed with his dedication.
Step outside, okay? No, this is my private...
Wow, you know what? This is like one...
However, he still reminds her that some things are best left a mystery. Even so, he helps by providing new information. In the case of the Stevenson family, the police found a paralyzing substance in the victims' bodies. This means that before being killed, they were first rendered helpless. Hearing this, Ellison became even more intrigued. He and James began to connect several similar cases that had occurred in the past. James noted 3 massacres that had a similar pattern. The pool party tragedy, 1966. The burning of a family in a car, 1979. The sleepy time case, 1998. The next day, Ellison tried to match the scene with the images he had found earlier. Eventually, he noticed a chilling pattern. A mysterious figure called the Boogeyman was always present in every tragedy.
So? Yeah, I understand.
But I got what you asked, 79.
Daddy.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Hey, Deputy Son.
Their car was set on fire.
Somehow, the creature's presence was always connected to this house and the families who had lived in it. However, before he could digest all the facts he had uncovered, something unexpected happened. Ellison, who was inspecting the attic, suddenly lost his balance and fell. Just then, in a flash, he saw a small hand that seemed to be trying to pull him into the darkness. His heart was racing, his body was trembling, and his breathing was labored. However, as soon as he opened his eyes, the hand had disappeared as if it had never been there. The crackling sound of the old projector in the study made Ellison's hair stand on end. He turned his gaze to the screen, and just then a horrifying figure appeared among the shadows. Boogeyman. Ellison was shocked beyond belief. In a panic, he grabbed a nearby bat just in case. However, before he could take a step, a large herder dog suddenly appeared in front of him. His heart beat faster, his mind was in turmoil, and his body froze. However, what happened next made him even more horrified. Behind the dog, there were 5 small children standing silently staring at him. Their faces were pale, their eyes blank, and their bodies seemed to be mere shadows of a long-lost life. Meanwhile, Claire, his wife, began to realize something was wrong. She noticed that Ellison's demeanor was becoming increasingly strange and absent-minded. She asked her husband to leave the house immediately, feeling that there was danger threatening them. However, Ellison, who was already immersed in his investigation, refused to leave. For him, this story would be a big breakthrough that could make him famous again, especially with the trend of true stories being adapted into films lately. "I promise we'll move after my book is finished," Ellison said with confidence. Despite her doubts, Claire finally chose to obey her husband. The next night, Ellison decided to watch the final tape titled Yard Cleanup. However, the deeper he delves, the more sinister the mystery becomes. Sensing a strange pattern, he contacted Professor Jonas, an expert in abduction cases and ancient symbols. When shown the symbols Ellison found in the video, Professor Jonas revealed a shocking fact: the symbols were ancient symbols of an evil Babylonian god named Bugwul. Bugwul was known as the predator of children's souls, a being who targeted innocent children, then ensnared them to become his followers in the other world. Hearing that explanation, Ellison realized something terrible: the missing children, including Stephanie and the other 4 victims, had not just disappeared, but had become Bugwul's slaves in another realm. The next morning, before he could digest all the information he had received, Ellison woke up in a panic. Without warning, the old projector turned itself back on. Ellison, who had just woken up, was shocked. His eyes widened as he saw Stephanie suddenly appear from the darkness. However, it wasn't just her. The shadows of the other children also began to appear in the corners of the room, surrounding him with creepy blank stares. As if to drive Ellison away from this house, they moved slowly closer to him, creating an increasingly tense atmosphere. Not wanting to linger in the face of this strangeness, a panicked Ellison immediately ran to find Trevor and Ashley. After making sure all the doors and windows were locked, he decided to sleep on the sofa, just in case something happened. In the morning, Ellison had just started writing when there was a snapping sound from inside the house. As it turned out, Claire was scolding Trevor. With a worried look on her face, Claire revealed something that made Ellison's blood boil. Stephanie had apparently lived in this house before her entire family was found dead hanging from the back tree. Hearing this, Claire became even angrier. She immediately pulled her husband into the room and presented him with the facts that she had been hiding.
For not telling you, okay? Because remember, you never wanted to.
But you said no!
Me if we were
You think I wouldn't find out?
living 2 houses.
So, you deliberately brought us to live in a massacre house? Claire really couldn't get over her husband's crazy decision. She was sure that the horrible disturbance they were experiencing had something to do with the tragedy. Feeling that he could no longer hide, Ellison finally apologized. He promised that they would leave the house immediately if the situation became more dangerous. However, Claire didn't believe him anymore. To her, Ellison cared more about his ambition and career than the safety of his own family.
And your legacy?
That night, Ellison was again awakened by the sound of the projector turning itself on. Overcome with disgust and anger, he immediately rushed to check the source of the sound. After searching around, Ellison finally realized the sound was coming from the attic. With growing fear, he tried to venture upstairs. However, after witnessing how horrifying the contents of the recordings were, Ellison made a drastic decision. He was going to burn everything. As the flames began to consume the box of cursed tapes, Claire awoke to see her husband panicking. Without saying much, Ellison looked at her with a serious face and said, "We need to get out of this house immediately. Right now." They quickly packed up and left the house in the middle of the night. As the rain poured down mercilessly. On the way, Ellison promised Claire that he would cancel his book project. No more Stevenson family cases. No more horror.
Oh yeah, this goes in the office, right in there on the right.
No, I'm not taking that bet.
A few hours later, they arrived at their new home, a large, luxurious house that seemed to prove that Ellison did have a lot of money. But the tranquility was short-lived. An email arrived. A curious Ellison opened it and found horrifying images of Bugwell's demonic rituals sent by Professor Jonas. Shortly after, Jonas contacted him and explained something that made Ellison's hair stand on end. The boogeyman symbol found in the video was the gateway for Bugwell to enter the human world. With the symbol, Bugwell could influence victims and make them do his will. "So, how do I close this gate?" asked Ellison frantically. However, Professor Jonas could only remain silent. "I don't know. There is no information on how to close it." Feeling increasingly uneasy, Ellison decided to put his belongings away. However, when he opened one corner of the room, he was shocked. There, the video box he was supposed to have burned reappeared in one piece. His hand trembled as he opened the box. Inside, there was an envelope labeled "Extended Version" of all the massacre footage he had ever found. While watching the footage, Ellison finally understood the horrific pattern that had been hidden. The victims were always killed in the next house, after they had lived in the house where the previous massacre took place. And now, Ellison and his family had fallen into the same trap. Suddenly, Ellison realized something even more horrifying. The children in the video, the children of the victims' families, were not the real victims. They were the perpetrators of the massacre. Before he could do anything, however, his head began to feel dizzy. His vision blurred. With his consciousness fading, he turned to the table. The cup of coffee he had just drunk.
I like that you made the movies long. Don't worry, Dad.
With what was left of her consciousness, Ellison saw Ashley raise the camera ready to record the next event, just as the other children had done before her. After slaughtering her entire family, Ashley was picked up by the spirit children who had previously fallen victim to Bugwell. However, before leaving, Ashley did something terrible. She drew a painting on the wall of the house. The painting depicted the horrific tragedy that had just occurred. Blood, darkness, and terror are clearly depicted in the curse-filled graffiti. From this incident, we can understand a pattern of curses that has been going on for years. Whoever lives in the house that was the scene of the death will be cursed. The youngest child of the family occupying the house would be influenced by Bugwell to carry out the massacre. The spirits of the previous victimized children would harass the new occupants, forcing them to move to another house. If the occupants were too strong and did not move immediately, Bugwell himself would intervene to terrorize them. When the family finally moved out, in their new home they would meet their deaths in gruesome ways, continuing the never-ending chain of curses. It's a hellish cycle that repeats itself endlessly, trapping family after family in a cruel cycle of death. That's the review and discussion of this movie. Don't forget to like and subscribe, so you don't miss other interesting videos.